I was talking to one of my friends from college. So I've only played Ultimate Team last year and this year. But my friend had an account, and we would like kind of share the account or whatever, going back to 14 or 15. Um, and then when Foot Champs was introduced, it seemed like there was a shift in the community and kind of how EA would interact with the community. I remember in 15 when they had the tournaments mode, we would just have fun and play tournaments, and if we lost, we lost, and it was whatever. But now it's like if you lose a game in champs, it feels like you take the hit so much harder. Have you noticed that sort of shift as well? And do you know sort of why EA wants to do that, or do you have any thoughts on that?
There's definitely been a shift. I do agree. I think there has been a shift. I think that with the introduction of Foot Champions, they've created this toxic environment now where the rank you achieve defines you as a FIFA player, and every loss that you then take feels like a personal attack because you're not getting closer to achieving that rank that then defines you as a FIFA player. So I think that unfortunately the introduction of competitive game modes has forced players to take the game way more personally, and it has created a community that is way more toxic because of that, because everyone thinks that, oh, if I hit elite this weekend, then I'm going to get more respect as a player. And it doesn't make sense because it doesn't mean shit at the end of the day. It doesn't matter if you're an elite player or you're a silver player. Like, who actually cares at the end of the day? But unfortunately, it has created this environment. And I don't know if EA wanted to create it, but we're at a stage now where they can't go back. They unfortunately, it's impossible. That if they take out rewards from any game mode, no one's going to play it. And if they remove the competitive nature of the game, it will unfortunately make the game incredibly boring after it's kind of become this massive competitive sweat fest, really. So I don't think that they can take it back. I don't think they meant it to get to here, but it has, and they do need to take responsibility for that.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly for sure. The community itself is we were put in a position where, like you said, if rewards aren't there anymore, nobody wants to play. And I'm sure after games and champs, you've received all sorts of nasty messages from people before. But it just doesn't create, like, you want a game like that to be fun. And you definitely hear people like saying, no, it's not fun. Like on Nepo's Road to Glory last year, he was like, I'm going to play champs every weekend. And I think he played like 3 times.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, I just don't want to play anymore. And Tex, I think either last year or 2 years ago at whatever event he was at, and after he won, he was like, nobody likes this game anymore. It's interesting because you hear everybody say those things, and then yet at the end of the day, as soon as EA releases something new, everybody's like, oh, look at this new card. I'm going to play for another 8 hours. It's this weird sort of love-hate relationship, I think, that the community has with EA. And obviously I only see it from the standpoint of watching you guys create the content, but for you as a content creator, do you feel that as well? Or is some of it just like, I need to get a video out today and people are asking me about this card, so I'm going to do it?
There is definitely an element of just trying to get a video out and just trying to pump out some content. But I think even for content creators, I think there's a level of addiction that goes into this game. And as much as I'd like to try and pinpoint what that addiction is, I don't really know. Because I'm the same. One day I'll be absolutely sick and tired of FIFA, and the next day a brand new shiny card comes out and I want to go and play 30 games a weekend league. It doesn't make sense, but then again, addiction doesn't. I think that there is an addicting nature to FIFA that brings people back and makes people want to play constantly more. Maybe that's the idea of upgrading the team or achieving a better reward, or maybe that's packs that are addicting. I'm not entirely sure, but there is this weird pull that brings people back, and it does the same thing for me.
Yeah.
So I don't know how they've done it, but EA have somehow roped everyone in, and they continue to do it every single time.
Yeah. It's a little bit scary, honestly. But I think the packs definitely are one of it. I think the gambling sort of aspect to that, and people are addicted to gambling. It's a pretty self-explanatory one. But I think part of it is the fear of missing out, and then if you don't get the rewards that week, that your team is now all of a sudden falling behind the power curve, so to speak. And I think that's a big part of it, because you see players get released, and you're like, you or whoever's doing a player review will be like, oh, they're behind the power curve, or they're past the power curve, or whatever. I think that could be a part of it as well. Like, you don't want to miss out on whatever that player is, even though at the end of the game you go through the stats and you're like, well, I played with this player for 4 games. And it's
Yeah.
like, what was even the point? But they still have created this sort of cycle that you feel like you need to get the player, like, because you might need it later. They've done that with objectives as well. Like last year with the first owner objectives, they created this so like people were like, yeah, I need to get this player.
Yeah, I think that they definitely create that kind of illusion that makes you think that it's a necessity to obtain the players. I think there might be a level of, I think a lot of people think that, like the idea that they're building something, you know, they're building their club, and it's like they're building the foundations, and they're constantly improving the club. And whilst I like that, and I think that's quite an innocent way to look at it, I do think that when it boils down to it, I just think that EA have done a good job of making people feel like they need to come back to the game, and they need, because you know, it's almost like their club is a plant, and they need to come and water it every day. You know, they need to spend their hour or 2 hours on the game every day. They need to play their 30 games a weekend league a weekend. And if they don't, like you said, the idea of missing out, or the idea that they've not put in the time to grow their club as if they should have this week. And when you really kind of uncover the shell, no one needs to spend any time on the game.
No.
It's literally just a game, and it's just a foot club. And if you spend a week off the game and you enjoy that week, you don't need to go back and put 2 more weeks into it of hard grinding to get back to where you were. You really don't. But again, EA have created this ecosystem and this entity where if you don't build on it every single day, you do have that fear of missing out, and you do have the fear that you've not put your 2 hours a day into the game. It's a very strange ecosystem they've built, but it works so well for them, for selling games and for selling packs and for selling everything, really.
It does. I have one thought on the need to like water the plant, like you said. Do you think that you guys as content creators have just like a little bit to do with that? I feel like people watch you guys, and they say, oh, Haber has all of these things, let me go do something like that. Maybe not for the older people that watch you, but for the younger ones. Do you think there's do you think that holds any water, or not so much?
I think there is definitely influence from people like myself, or the content creators, when it comes to the content we create. I think that things, for example, pack openings, I think everyone wants to be able to open unlimited packs on the game, right? And everyone wants to be able to use the full icon squads and the best squads possible. And it's not a realistic or achievable goal for 99.9% of players that play the game. So
Right.
I think that it's almost the glamorous second side of the game, watching someone like myself rip open £1,000 of packs, because they know they can't do it, but they want to see what it's like. And I think that also does encourage players to want to do it even more. And the people that can afford to do it, or the people that can achieve that goal, it may encourage them to pursue it, which I think then puts a burden of the need to be honest about what it's like to achieve that certain goal and to put a ton of money into the game. So I'll show, for example, the bad packs. I'll show a weekend of weekend league rewards where we get absolutely nothing. It's a terrible weekend. So, but I do think that there is definitely encouragement that comes from content creators, and how we play the game. But I also think that I don't think it's just content creators, but I think it's the community in general that have created this circle of almost respect. Like if you're a Road to Glory, for example, and you're
Hmm.
zero money spent and you have a great team, you earn this strange uh subsufficient medal from people that
Right.
where you know you got this badge of honor that you've created something by spending zero money on a game,
Hmm.
or if you achieve this rank without spending it, you know you gain this respect. So I think that whilst there is definitely encouragement that comes from content creators, I think there is also the weird circle jerk within the community where they love to give out respect to people for achieving what other content creators do without spending money, or for without spending the hours on the game, you know. So
Yeah.
I think it works hand in hand, really.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's weird because the comments also, like the comment sections and the viewers also have a part to play in, like you said, the road to glory with no money spent. Because as soon as if you were doing that and you put £5 or $5 on the game, the comments would be, it's not for
Yeah.
or it's not like free to play anymore. Like this
Mhm.
doesn't even count. It's all invalid, even though realistically that £5 got you one premium gold pack in which you probably packed someone worth 600 coins.
Yeah.
And so it's a weird sort of like the comments versus the content creators and then EA itself. But do you feel any sort of like responsibility that when you're creating content to make sure it's like, hey, don't spend this much money on the game if you can't afford it, or like, or is that just kind of like who you are as a person that you're going to show them like the bad stuff as well?
There is definitely a level of responsibility that you take on as a content creator. I think the biggest issue is that EA have created a game that is pay to win, and it's a game where microtransactions are so prevalent and make such an amount of money for them that they advertise it. So there's almost a level of I don't even need to say it sometimes, because people say it for me, and people do the work for me, in the sense that they expose EA for shady advertisements, and they point out how terribly unworth it packs are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you know, if I have somebody watching a stream and I go and spend 36,000 FIFA points, and you know they're thinking, oh, they might put in chat, you know, should I open a 100k pack? I'll always tell them no, because ultimately it isn't worth it regardless.
Mm-hmm.
But I also do remind people that they can kind of do what they want with their money. You know, if
Yeah.
you can afford it and you have the spare cash, you have $80 to spend on the game, and that's what you want to do, don't feel the pressure or the hatred from other people for spending on the game, because they don't. And I think that whilst as a content creator, I am responsible for making it clear that if you can't afford it, and you don't have the money, or you're trying to use your parents' credit card or something, definitely do not.
Yeah.
I also feel like the responsibility to remind people not to be rude, negative, or toxic to people that are choosing to spend their money on what they want to spend it on, because
Mm-hmm.
ultimately both are wrong, in my opinion. Judging someone for spending some money on FIFA in their spare time,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I think it's unfair on that person just because they want to play with their favorite player, you know.
Yeah.
And at the same time, someone that's maybe in debt or has an addiction to gambling already and is thinking about spending money on FIFA points, is absolutely my responsibility to make sure they don't, or to point them in the right direction anyway.
Mm-hmm. Does that weigh on you at all, that responsibility? Are you ever like, oh, I should have said this thing differently, or
Mm,
in terms of this, or you kind of have, I don't want to say come to peace, but you understand like what you're doing, and you know that you're consistent throughout your videos and the message that you're sending out in terms of this issue specifically?
I would say I don't lose sleep over it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if there, I don't, maybe I don't advocate enough at times that that you know, for the people that obviously can't afford it, or for the people that spending money on the game would be have a negative impact on their livelihood. You know, I maybe don't advocate enough to stay away. And of course I know that spending a lot on videos and stuff is absolutely going to be an encouragement to some.
Mm-hmm.
I Any opportunity given will let people know that it's absolutely not worth it.
Yeah.
And especially on the streams, the YouTube videos not so much. The YouTube videos, I think, the content on YouTube, the content that does well on YouTube is glamourifying the packs. You know, showing
Yeah.
getting a great icon or something. That's what brings in views.
Hmm.
But on a Twitch stream, something that's way more raw, that's very personal, and something that's just more me. I
Hmm.
will say at least once a stream if I open packs to not do it. You know,
Yeah.
I'll let people know it's definitely not worth it. Um, it's a difficult one though, because I also feel that at times if I'm going to shed a negative light on the like if I was to go around telling people how terrible packs are, you know, don't spend money on packs, don't open
Hmm.
packs at all, I also would expect those people to then stop watching my content. So
Sure.
it's a
It's a
hard,
balance.
yeah, it's kind of a battle. It's kind of a moral versus ethical battle, really.
Hmm.
You know, should I tell people every day on Twitter not to open packs, to never give EA money, they're the devil, and then possibly risk losing them as viewers, or
Hmm.
do I just wait until somebody asks me the question before I answer it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a tough one. I can see how it's a tough one.